Hello and welcome to episode 91 of the She Must Knit podcast. My name is Erin and thank you so much for spending some of your time with me today. I hope you guys had a great week and I hope you guys had a great Christmas. It is currently the 29th, so Christmas has come and gone. All the craziness has come and gone and we are kind of in recovery mode. I am trying to get the house back in order. There's still stuff everywhere, trying to find new places for things, and also trying to find little bits of time to myself. So I am recording right now in the evening. Avery is upstairs in bed. Dennis is off doing something, so he is not home. So the lighting is going to be a little off. The color is probably going to be a little off. But because it is the holidays and everybody is home all the time, it is very difficult to find little snippets of time where I can just sit down and talk to you guys. So this is what you're getting. You're getting me on a Sunday evening. So how was your Christmas? I hope it was really nice. Ours was very, very nice. Christmas Day, we don't leave the house. That's a rule of ours. We do not leave the house. We do not travel. We don't see anybody. Anybody who wants to come visit is welcome, but we do not leave the house. So Christmas is actually a very relaxing day for us, but then right after Christmas we had several days where we were going out and about, seeing my family, seeing Dennis's family, seeing friends. We have some friends visiting this week, so it's actually busier now than it was right at Christmas. But overall, we had a really nice Christmas. If you've been watching Vlogmas, I am currently working on getting the last installment up, so it will be Christmas Eve and then Christmas Day. You'll probably see this in a day or two after this gets posted. But for now, I just wanted to get a regular episode up. However, I don't actually have a whole lot of knitting to share with you. As you can imagine, with the week leading up to Christmas, there's just lots to do. There's lots of shopping to do. There's lots of planning to do. There's lots of wrapping to do. And when I was sitting down to try and figure out what exactly I worked on this week, there isn't a whole lot, but I still have some stuff to talk about. So what do I have for you today? I have progress on 2 projects that I've shared with you previously. I have 1 finished object, and then I have some discussion stuff. So we are going to talk about my final bingo card. At this point, with 2 days left of the month, I really don't see finishing any of the other squares, so I'm just going to show you what I've done and what my final bingo card looks like. We are also going to discuss the goals that I had for December, what I was able to complete and what I didn't complete, and then my goals for January. And then I thought also at the end I would throw in a little bit of discussion based on my year-long kind of low buy. So I've touched on it in a few episodes over the course of the year, but I really made it my goal this year to cut back on household spending and just excess household items. And that has been going really, really well. And so I just want to kind of touch on my thoughts now that we are at the end of the year, and then also what my plan is going into the new year and how I'm going to kind of continue this mindset. So that's what I have planned for you today. So let's get started. And we are going to start as usual with my Desert Vista Dye Works monthly sock. So this is the last month of this year's challenge, and I'm definitely not as far behind as I was last month. I can say I'm still pretty confident that I'm going to finish this month. I haven't finished yet. I'm still working on them. I know everybody else who was working along with me with this colorway, I believe, has finished. Steph has finished her socks. I've seen the other ones pop up on Instagram as finished. I'm still working on mine, but that's okay. I think I will be okay. So last week I showed you the finished first sock. So this is a Desert Vista Dye Works in the color Stranger Things. I am making these for my brother as his Christmas pair for next year. And when I'm knitting socks for any of the men in my life, I do 72 stitches, and then this is just a very plain vanilla sock with a German short row heel. So last week I showed you the start of the second sock, and I explained how I did what I usually do, where I rewind the cake so that the stripes are going in the opposite direction. and I think I had just finished, or I was just finishing this gray stripe here. So I was able to finish the cuff. I've got the leg done. I've got my German short row heel in, and I am currently working down the foot. So based on November socks, when I was working on the second sock on the last day of the month, and I hadn't even finished the heel yet, I remember in the evening getting through the heel and then working through the foot, I think I'll be okay. I have 2 full days to finish the foot, and I find if I can just sit and work on a foot, I can get that done. So this is how they are looking so far. So you can just see how the stripes are reversed, and I'm actually quite pleased that even though I reversed the stripes, you can see that the black and red sections are all kind of lining up. Even the heel is doing the same kind of split that this one does. So the second sock actually looks more like a match than you would think, considering the stripes are going in the opposite direction. I really, really like how these are turning out. I feel pretty good. I feel pretty calm about finishing these. I was working on these today, and I got a good couple of inches done on the foot. I'm going to work on these probably some more tonight and some more tomorrow. So I might still finish on the last day, but it's not going to be the nail biter that November was. I'm not really worried about finishing those. So that is the first project I worked on. And then the second project that I worked on was the gift hat that I shared with you last week. So I explained how I had been asked by one of Dennis's friends, his wife, if I could make a hat for her husband because he has a very large head. Apparently he's very hard to find hats for, and she wanted to give him kind of a dark colored ribbed slouchy hat. And so I said, yep, that's fine, you know, just don't expect it for Christmas. But that's what I was working on, and I think I showed you last week. I thought I had a marker in. I guess this is the marker here. So I think I was about here when I showed it to you last week, and I explained that it was just a 1x1 hat. This is the Erie hat pattern, and the only change that I did was I did a tubular cast on using the crochet method. I did link to the video that I used in last week's episode, but I will link to it again in this episode. I found it very easy to follow. There was a couple of steps, so there was like the whole thing consisted of maybe 4 or 5, maybe 6 rows until you were working in the round and you could take the waist yarn out. But each of those rows was very straightforward and easy to follow, and I think the result is really quite nice. It really gives a nice edge. And last week I still had some of the waist yarn in so that I could show you the difference. I've now taken that out, and you can see it is quite stretchy. So it is a really, really nice edge. And I think that's going to be good because I was texting back and forth with his wife, and she was trying to give me the best measurements that she could based on the things that she could find of his without him knowing that she was trying to get this information. And so this hat, when I measure it unstretched, is 19 inches long, or 19 inches around. And she thinks his head is probably closer to about 24 inches. And so I think that'll be good. This will definitely stretch to 24 inches, but I didn't want to make it the size of his head. You want it to be a little smaller so that it kind of stays on. So I feel pretty good about the circumference of my hat. I think at this point I've got about 6 inches worth of rib done. The pattern, the original pattern, calls for the whole hat to be 10.5 inches, and she estimated, she measured one of his hats at about 10.5 inches, and she said that one is too small for him. So we are going to do this hat to 15 inches. So I still have about 10 inches of ribbing to go, but surprisingly, even with the dark color and the ribbing, it's still a fairly pleasant project to work on because it's just so mindless. Like I can just sit there and do rib, and because I still have so many inches to go, I don't have to really worry about counting anything. So yeah, I just have this by my desk, and if I just feel like, you know, knitting a little bit and not thinking about anything, I'll pick this up and work on it. So I'm hoping to have this done. I'd like to get this done within the next 2 weeks probably, just so that they can get it while it's still cold outside. But I'm happy with how this is working out. I think it looks really nice and polished. The yarn that I'm using is the Lion brand Heartland. I picked this up at my local Michael's, and it's kind of this, I think the color is black, but it's kind of like this charcoal marl. And yeah, I think it's making it's knitting up to be a really nice soft hat. Like, I think it's a very polished looking soft hat. I think he will like it once it's done. So those are the only 2 projects really that I worked on this week. Surprisingly, I didn't really work on my granny stripe blanket at all. I've still been opening minis, I've still been putting in the basket, but I just haven't really sat down and worked on the blanket at all. I was hoping to work on my mitered square blanket and get some of the leftovers from socks in there. I haven't done that. So yeah, these are really the only 2 knitting projects that I worked on. And then I have my finished object. So unfortunately, I don't have it here to show you because it was indeed a gift, and I have given it to the recipient already. But before I wrapped it up, I did do a little video clip to show you how it looked and just to talk about it a little bit. So I will insert that here now, and then when we come back, we will talk about my final bingo card. I just thought I would take a minute to show you this finished project. Before I get it wrapped up, we are going to visit some family, and you're not going to be able to see this on the next episode. So this is the deer cross stitch that I've been working on. I finished it last night. Yes, Mr. T, I am at the table. And so yeah, I finished it up. I've got the back all done. To finish up the fabric, all I did was spray the areas that kind of had hoop marks in it with a bit of water, and I pressed it with an iron. I also unraveled the edges a little bit for a border, but it looks like it's going to be about the exact size of the frame, so you might not see that. We'll see. But yeah, I'm about to pop this in the frame and then get it wrapped up. So I just wanted to show you guys how it turned out. It was a super easy pattern, and I really think the finished design looks quite nice. And there it is, all framed up. So hopefully the recipient will like it. Okay, we're back. I hope you enjoyed that and seeing the finished project. I really had fun with that cross stitch project. The pattern was very simple, it was easy to follow. I really liked how even though it was only 2 colors, it was still a very striking design. It made it very simple to work on because I didn't have to change colors in like after tiny sections. It was just all using the black thread. And I do have another design from that same designer planned to do in 2020. So now let's talk about my final bingo card. So I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail because in one of my recent episodes I went through all the squares, what I had left, what I thought I could still finish by the end of the year. Spoiler, I basically didn't finish any of the ones that I thought I could still finish. But I'm gonna pop up a picture of my final card so that you can see what I did. I think if I remember correctly, I know I have at least 2 bingos, maybe 3 bingos, so 3 full lines of projects that I completed. And the last square that I was able to put in was finish a cross stitch project. So the one that I just showed you, finished that square. I was really hoping to get my exploration station done because that would have finished off 2 squares and then would have also given me another bingo. But I just decided I didn't want to make myself work on things if there was other things that I wanted to work on more. So as much as it would have been nice to have that project finished for the end of the year, there was just other things that I felt like working on more, and so I was like, you know what, it's fine. There's no bingo police out there, you know, no one cares if I finish my card, it's just personal goals. And I just decided that I would wait and probably finish my exploration station fairly early in next year. So that is my final bingo card. Just a reminder that the thread is up in the Bling Your String group for signing up for the 2020 Crafty Bingo Challenge if that's something that interests you. It's just a really fun, easygoing challenge. You decide what your goals are. Also, the thread for submitting your bingo card is currently up, so if you participated in 2019 and you want to submit your final card for any prizes, you will want to go and do that. So that is all the bingo stuff that I had to talk about for today. And so now we're going to go into my goals update. So what were my goals in December, what did I finish, and also what my goals are in January to work towards my new bingo card. So yeah, December, I gave myself, if you remember, I gave myself a ton of goals, and a lot of them were to finish projects. I basically did one thing on this list. Now, one thing I still think I will finish, so possibly 2 goals I'll have completed, but most of them I did not. So as a reminder, my goals for December were to finish my December DVD socks. I do think I will do that. Finish one other pair. So I was also working on a microstripe pair of socks and my scrappy Advent socks. Neither of those, I think both of them, I'm still on the first sock, so I did not finish another pair of socks. Finished Avery's sweater for Christmas. That did not happen. And you know what? I don't even know if that is going to happen. Now that Christmas is over, I've kind of lost interest in working on that project. She got several kind of cozy sweaters as gifts, and I just don't have the motivation to finish that for her. So I'm almost debating, because I'm still working up the body, I'm only a couple of inches up into the body, I'm kind of debating on frogging that and either using the yarn for something else or making her something else. If you remember on my 2020 bingo card, there's the light box sweater that I really want to make her and then make the baby a matching one. I'm more motivated to get that started than I am to finish this chenille sweater. So that might get frogged, but anyway, I didn't make any more progress on that. Finish the cross stitch, I did that. Finish the body of my Linger Here sweater, I didn't even touch it. And finish the exploration station, I didn't even touch it since I last showed it to you. So yeah, December's goals were kind of a wash, and I think going into next year, I'm going to have to remember this when making my mini goals as the end of the year approaches. But December is just that kind of month where so much is going on that I should really just keep things very, very minimal. So I'm planning on participating in the Desert Vista Dyeworks Challenge again next year. So I'm thinking next year my December goal should really just be the monthly socks, and then maybe 1 or 2 other things if I have like a gift that I need to finish. But other than that, I really need to keep it very, very open and just work on the things that I want to work on. So for January, I actually had to sit down and think a bit because I hadn't thought about what I wanted to work on in January. I knew I had my bingo card. I had that all set up. I've got my goals. I'm pretty happy with them. I'm really excited to get started on them. But then when I sat down, I was like, oh, I should make some goals for January. I was like, where do I start? I have like this blank slate of a card that I can tackle anything. So I did give myself a few goals, and I'm going to try and focus on especially the projects that I picked out that I want to have done before the baby comes. I'm going to try and focus on those for the next couple of months because I basically have January, February, March, and then April, who knows what's going to happen. So I really kind of need to tackle those within the next 3 months. So for January's goals, the first one is to finish my January Desert Vista Dyeworks socks. I would like to finish 1 other pair of socks. So again, I still have those 2 pairs of socks kind of carrying over into next year. I would like to finish 1 of those. I would like to start the baby vertebrae. So I think that's the first project that I want to finish for to kind of put away for the baby. It's going to be the only thing that I have at this time that will be newborn size. And if you remember the episode where I was talking about the things that I knit for Avery when we were expecting her, we had no newborn sweaters when she was born, and I kind of had to whip one up right after she was born so that she'd have a sweater that she could wear. So one of my goals is to have a newborn size sweater for when the baby's born. So I think that's going to be the first thing I tackle, is the newborn vertebrae. I want to just get that started in January. I really don't think that project is going to take very long. Next, I want to continue working on my granny stripe blanket. I have all those minis that I got from my advent calendar swaps, and I want to keep working on putting those in. And then the other thing is I just want to catch up on my Cozy Memories blanket. So at the end of each year, I like to kind of cap off the squares that I put in that year and then add a little tag with the year so I can see how the progress has gone from year to year to year to year. And then I also border it with black to kind of visually like separate it. So I really want to get that, I want to get 2019 section kind of closed off so that as I work on other projects that use fingering weight yarn, I can start working on the section for 2020. So those are my goals for January. I think they're pretty achievable. And yeah, I wanted to have enough to be challenging, but not so many that I wouldn't be able to finish any. So those are my goals. And then I think that's it in terms of all the knitting stuff. So all I have left to talk about is kind of my year-end thoughts on how my low buy kind of went through the year. So if you remember back in January, I talked about how I wanted to give myself the challenge over this past year of really reducing the excess stuff that we have in our house and trying to curb impulse purchases and stuff like that, just bringing in stuff in the house that I don't need. And this stemmed from the previous year when I did a challenge in terms of yarn, like specifically yarn. I had done a year-long challenge where I gave myself certain rules about purchasing yarn, and my goal was really just to focus on using stash, and it was to change my mindset on mainly impulse purchases. I found that a lot of times I would just impulse buy, you know, at online, especially online, but online, you know, you'd see on Instagram, you'd see someone talking about a certain yarn, you'd think it was pretty, and boom, you'd buy that yarn. And I just really wanted to curb that. So that was 2018, and it went so well. By the end of the year, I had just really lost my interest in adding to my stash. Like I realized what I had already. I was really happy with what I had. I really enjoyed working with what I had. I'd gotten to the point where even though I had certain rules in place where I could purchase yarn at shows, for example, I just wasn't interested in doing that. And that has carried on into this year. I really haven't added a lot to my stash this year. And so last January, I wanted to kind of translate that mindset into household purchases. So to curb just unnecessary spending on household items, and also to use what we have. And I had talked about in the beginning of the year how the first thing I did was I just went through the house and I put all like things together. So I put all my hand soaps together, I put all my shampoos together, all my conditioners together, all my like different parts of, you know, moisturizers and skincare and stuff. I put all of them together so I could see what I had and what I had to go through. And then I started off with giving myself, I think the beginning of the year, I started off by giving myself a tiny budget that I could spend each month. And then as the months progressed, I kind of changed how I approached that. So one of the things that I came away with, especially if this is something that you want to try, is that it's okay to change things according to how, like, as your habits change and as your mentality towards shopping changes, it's okay to change the parameters to go along with that. So I started off with a teeny tiny budget, and that worked for a couple of months, and then I found that it wasn't really fitting with where I was. So about midway through the year, I changed to where I gave myself kind of like an item goal for the month, so I could buy about 5 things. So budget wasn't as much of a concern anymore. I just wanted to focus on picking out like the 5 things, no more than 5 things. So I really had to think if there was more than 5 things that I wanted or I was interested in, I really had to kind of narrow it down to the top 5. And then I did that for a couple of months. And then as I found my mentality changed as the months progressed, I found I kind of fell into this very comfortable place where the only kind of stipulation I had for purchasing new things was if it was a replacement. So obviously if I used something up, I could replace it. But then also I just had to, it just couldn't be an impulsive purchase. If I had thought about it for a long enough time, so as long as I had thought about it and it was in my mind, and what I would tend to do is, like, if I was interested in an item, I'd be like, okay, I'm interested in this item. You know, maybe this is the price that it retails for, but I don't want to pay that price. I want to pay like this price, or anything around this price is what I'd be willing to pay. And then as time goes on, if I saw that item at a price I was willing to pay, then I would revisit that thought. Do I still want this item? Sometimes the answer was yes, and then I would purchase it. Other times I had lost interest in that item completely, and so I just wouldn't. And I found that I was just not interested in buying things. If you give yourself time, almost always you'll lose you'll lose the interest in most things. I found that to be quite interesting. Given enough time, given enough thought, most items that I was interested in initially, I lost interest in completely, and I just wasn't interested in purchasing anymore. So that's kind of where I am at this point, is that I just have to, if I just try and avoid seeing something or hearing about something and immediately going and purchasing it. I write it down and I will revisit it if a sale comes up, or if I see it in the store, I will revisit it at a later time. And if I still am interested in it, I will consider it. But a lot of times I'm not interested in it anymore. So that has been a really, really kind of interesting development, especially coming from someone who is very impulsive, is a very impulsive spender. So a few other things that I've come away with. Basically, there's 3 things that I've come away with after doing this for the entire year. So the first one, again, is when you make your goals or you make your rules surrounding kind of the changes you want to make, it is okay to change them as you need to. The second thing is that backups are like pretty much unnecessary. So by that I mean, you know, if something is on sale, you know, stocking up and buying like 5 of them or 10 of them or whatever and stashing them away. I would do that a lot with like toothpaste and obviously hair care products like shampoos and stuff, and like hand soaps, because Bath and Body Works, I love their foaming hand soaps, but they always have those sales where you get so many for like such like a certain price. And really, backups are unnecessary. We are fortunate enough to live in kind of a world where if you run out of something, it's really not that hard to go out and get one. Like if all of a sudden I wake up one day and I'm like, oh darn, I've used my last drop of toothpaste this morning. It's not that difficult to go out and get one that day. So I try not to have backups. I am still working on, so remember at the beginning of the year I talked about how I had a whole bunch of shampoos and stuff. I'm still working through those shampoos. It has been a full year and I am not even close to working through the shampoo that I had in our cupboard. Same with hand soaps. I still have hand soaps that I've been working through, and it has been a full year. So once you start tracking what you're using, and that's another thing, I'll get to that in a minute, you realize how long things last, and you really don't need to have backups stashed away for when they run out, because it's going to take a long time. And one of the things that I did to kind of figure out how long things lasted is as I opened up a new thing, so as I started a new soap, as I start a new cream, a new cleanser, anything that I open up that I know is going to take, you know, a little bit of time to finish, I would take a Sharpie marker and I would write the date that I started using it. And it's very surprising how long some of these things last. I figured out that at a high frequency sink, one of those Bath and Body Works foaming hand soaps lasts about 2 months. And then obviously at a sink that is not used as frequently, it will last more. So when you think of how many you have in like one, in a minimum 2 months, you just don't need to have so many stored. And the same thing with other things. I would write down the date, and it would last months and months and months. You just don't think they're going to last that long. And the other thing about having backups is I would find a lot of the time, even if I started using a product that I was like, ooh, I really, really like this. If I see it on sale, I'm going to get another one so that I have it. Oftentimes by the time I finished that first one, because it would take like 6 months to finish it, I didn't want to use another one. I wanted to try something else or something like that. So I've just learned, don't need backups. What I tend to do now is as something is getting low, so dish soap or something that, yeah, like dish soap I replace fairly frequently. Other things, toothpaste I replace fairly frequently. But as something is getting noticeably low, I'll make a little mental note of it, because once you notice it's getting low, it's not going to be gone overnight. You still have time. And at that point, that's when I will start looking for that item to be on sale. And then when I see it on sale, that's when I'll pick it up. But it's always very close to when I'm already running out of it, versus having a whole little stockpile in the cupboard. So yeah, it's just been a really, really interesting experience this year. Just the fact that I'm still using a lot of the stuff that I had at the beginning of the year. Like, this stuff has lasted me a year and is probably going to go into next year. It just tells you how long, like how you don't need all this extra stuff. You don't need to be spending the money on all this extra stuff. So going into 2020, I do plan on continuing this because obviously I still have stuff to use up. And also, like I mentioned, my mentality towards just impulse purchasing and just stocking up on things has really changed. But what I really want to start doing for this year is I want to start writing down everything that I buy each month. So I'm not going to have a budget. I don't feel I'm in a place where I need a budget, but I want to write down everything I purchase because I want to kind of look at the end of the year. I want to be able to look back what I picked out each month and kind of see in retrospect what items were good purchases and what items maybe were regretful purchases, and just kind of hone in on that. You know, why, if down the road I wish I hadn't have purchased this item, why is that? You know, did I not think about it enough? Was it kind of an impulse thing, kind of like that. So that's going to be my goal for 2020, is just to write down everything each month that I buy, so that I want to kind of keep track of just how much I'm spending, and also I want to keep track on if I'm bringing in items that are adding to our household and adding to my life in general, or are they things that, you know, I kind of wish that I hadn't spent the money on. But yeah, so that's basically it. That's my plan for next year. If you guys had any kind of year-long challenges, I know some of you were talking about doing your own yarny challenges or your own household challenges. I would love to hear about how those went. I just think it's very interesting how how different people will approach things in different ways to suit them. So let me know below if you did anything like that this year. But I think that is it for this week's episode. And the next time I talk to you will be in 2020, and that is very exciting. So I hope you have a wonderful week, because it's basically the end of the weekend now. I hope you have a really nice New Year's if you are going out and doing anything. We are not. We are homebody type people, but I hope you have a lovely New Year's, and I will see you in 2020.